If you are in an emotionally abusive relationship, there are probably times where you have clarity that this is what is going on in your life. And there's going to be times, I'm sure, where you're confused. Are you making this up? Is this all in your head? Is it real? Or is it maybe super minor and not worth looking at? Well, in today's episode, I'm going to be sharing 3 of my favorite books that can help you educate yourself on what emotional abuse looks like, how it becomes a thing, what you can do to get out of it. It will help you really crystallize what's going on in your life. And if it really isn't a thing and you really are making it up, well, if you read these books, you'll know whether you're making it up or not. I think to see beyond emotional abuse in our lives and to see a way out of it and whether it's there, we genuinely need to educate ourselves because we've lived in the fishbowl of abuse for so long that it's hard to see it for what it is. In today's episode, we'll be going over my 3 favorite books, and I'll give you a brief review of them so you'll know if one of them is right for you. And again, if you are in an emotionally abusive relationship, getting education is so important for you. Now, this is part 2 of 3 videos of my emotional abuse resource library and toolkit. And I do have a download with the notes from all 3 of these episodes. And you will see the link pinned and in the description to get that download. So you don't have to take notes. You can just relax and follow along. And of course, by the end of this video, hopefully you can identify if one of these books is going to be a good starting place for you in increasing your education. All right, let's start with talking about emotional abuse. To recap the last episode, we identified some thought patterns and some behavior patterns that show up in emotional abusive relationships. And you can see that part 1 in my emotion abuse playlist. But now this section is to help you have more support. There's nothing like a good book to educate and to deepen your understanding of what you are facing. These resources can shift your perspective from what on earth is wrong with me to what is actually happening here. The first book I want to review is Why Does He Do That by Lundy Bancroft. Now, here's the book, but I use a front-facing camera, so it's going to look backwards, but this is the book. It is absolutely fantastic. It's widely recognized as the gold standard for understanding the mind of a controller, and it strips away excuses and focuses on the underlying belief system of the abuser. This is very, very important if you have trouble with over-sympathizing with someone who's mistreating you and excusing them again and again, saying, well, they don't know better, they're really trying, they're under a lot of pressure. So all right, let's talk about 3 key takeaways from Lundy's wonderful book. First one is abuse is a value system, not a feeling. One of the most vital shifts in this book is realizing that abuse is not a loss of control. It's a functional choice used to gain power. When an abuser claims they snapped, Bancroft asks why they didn't snap at their boss or a stranger. They are in control of themselves. They just feel entitled to snap at you and to behave the way they do. So this really explodes that myth that you can be a perfectly good person and then just suddenly lose it and, scream at somebody, insult somebody, beat somebody up, whatever, that really is a myth. The next point that she makes is the myth of the victim role. Many abusers use their own past trauma or current stress as a get out of jail free card. Bancroft teaches that you need to distinguish between when someone is genuinely struggling or someone who's using their struggles as a weapon to silence your needs. And that does take a little bit, I think, of intuition and maybe life experience to see the difference. It's important to know that there just is a difference, that there are some people out there who will use their life struggles as a reason to hurt you. And there are many people out there who that aren't using their life struggles, but they're actually struggling. And so maybe they're having a hard time showing up in a certain way. And we have to learn how to distinguish between the two. In my work, I have dealt with a family where there was an abuser who enacted a horrible act of violence on one of his children. And 20 years later, he still claimed that he was victimized by the child's sassiness, even though it almost resulted in the child's death. And so that is a real thing, someone blaming, well, I was victimized, so I had the right to do this. I was only defending myself, and be very aware because, of course, that is a red flag. All right, another point that she makes in her book is the intent behind the small incidents really mirrors what's going on inside of the mind of the abuser. So, minor incidents like a cold shoulder or a sarcastic comment is often just the watered down version of the partner's larger belief in that their needs matter more than yours. It's not a mistake, it's a strategy. And they may not necessarily be thinking clearly, "Ooh, I'm going to use this as a strategy," but in the back of their mind, that is what's going on. And so like cold shoulder, rude comments, you can't just say, "Oh, I don't know, I just wasn't thinking. I don't know, it just kind of happened." Because, Freud would be very clear on that it doesn't just happen. The water comes from the well, that if you pull a cup of water out of the well, it's going to have the same flavor as what is deep down inside of that well. So those thoughts and little words and little behaviors, they just leak out what's really going on inside. So no need for the abuser to disavow them and say, "Oh, I just wasn't paying attention." It really is reflective of what is going on inside for them and needs to be questioned. All right, the next book we're going to talk about is The Verbally Abusive Relationship. Oh, I don't have my copy with me on that one, but I have read it. It's by Patricia Evans, and it is so, so, so good. She provides a vocabulary for the crazy-making communication that leaves you feeling exhausted and confused after a simple conversation. One of the things that I love about that book, if I remember right, one of the main takeaways I had, and I've shared this with clients so many times, is that verbal abuse is defining your inner reality. It's telling you what you think and what you feel, and that is verbal abuse. So saying, "No, you think this, you meant that, you felt that, this is what you intended," that is verbal abuse. And so that is something that if we've lived in toxic environments, we can kind of find ourselves doing that on autopilot. So we need to also govern that in ourselves to ask other people, "Can you tell me what you were thinking? Can you tell me what you were feeling? Can you tell me what you intended?" Rather than, "I know you intended this." So in healthy relationships, that is something we just need to be very aware of. But if we are dealing with someone who is verbally abusive, they will try to define our inner world and tell us what we're thinking and feeling and intending. And we have to be very aware of that when that happens, to be like, "Oh, stop. I will be the one to say how I'm feeling. I'll be the one to say what I intended or what I was thinking." All right, let's talk about three other key takeaways. Number one, the power over versus the power with dynamic. You're likely operating in a power with mindset if you're trying to come at the relationship in an honest way. You're trying to compromise and seek connection. But the abuser is seeking in a power over mindset. So they're looking, how can I get the advantage of you? How can I get the power over you? Every conversation with them is a competition to be won. Once you realize you're playing two different games, then it's less confusing. If you're expecting that someone's going to want to collaborate, compromise, and they're seeing it from this open, genuine perspective, and then they keep arm wrestling you verbally, it's very confusing and hurtful. But if you realize, no, that's what's going on, then you can see through the clouds a little better. Okay, the second takeaway from her book is decoding the tactics of emotional abuse. This book identifies specific categories of abuse that often go unnamed. One is withholding, using silence as a tool to punish and to control. And that one is just good to see that if I see that the weather has shifted and now you're silent because you don't like something I just did, and I'm starting to feel really, really maybe I need to do something good to make up for it really quick. That's a technique that is being used to gain power. Another technique is countering, automatically disagreeing with your thoughts or feelings just to keep you off balance, which is different than if they're going, "Yeah, no, I actually don't agree with that. I can hear what you're saying, but I have different feelings." It's not in a collaborative way. It's just always boom, boom, boom. Whatever you say, it's going to be the opposite. So you just feel kind of tipped backwards, "Oh no, what do I do?" Yeah. Puts you on the defense or just off of balance, really. The next one is blocking and diverting, changing the subject or accusing you of starting something the minute you bring up a valid concern. So a couple different ways that can happen. Obviously, changing the subject and you're like, "Wait, what? I was trying to talk about something." I've been through all of this in my life because of family and reasons and all kinds of things. And it's always really, really, I would say, off-putting when you approach a conversation with someone. Hey, here's a thought or a conversation or an insight, and then all of a sudden they're talking about something way different, and you're going, "What, did you hear me?" It makes you feel, in my experience, kind of like a nobody, kind of invisible, really takes you off your balance. And then this other aspect of diverting, as in like pointing blame towards you. This has been a big one that I've seen with clients, and definitely in my own very past experiences, is that if you bring up a problem, you're blamed for being bad because you brought up the problem. I see this as just a huge, huge, huge red flag, and it's very common. It's not that they see that they actually did something wrong. If you're like, hey, I'm uncomfortable with this, or this hurt my feelings, or I'm confused about this, it's that you're just bad for bringing it up. They won't look at the merit of your concern, but you are bad for starting something. That's a huge one. All right, so far, is there something that's resonated with you? I'm really curious to hear from you. Maybe if there's something that stands out, if there's someone that you're thinking of, that you have in mind, a loved one, a daughter, a sister, a friend, that's going through something like this, or heaven forbid you, is there something of what we've talked about so far that like you're going, oh yeah, I've got to find my way out of this one? Or maybe in the past you've found your way out of. We can all learn together. Please put that in the comments so we can share with each other. All right, the last book, The Emotionally Abusive Relationship by Beverly Engel. I love this book so much. Beverly Engel is a beautiful soul and writes from the heart, and she really knows what she's talking about in this emotionally abusive relationship book. In it, she focuses on the internal experience of the victim, specifically addressing the psychological hooks and the deep-seated shame that makes leaving feel impossible. And again, as a therapist who's worked with many people who have, I would say for the most part, most of my clients haven't left. They come to me partway through for support, and then later they might leave, or sometimes I'll get them after they've left and we're working on recovery. But I'm here to definitely testify that leaving can feel impossible if you're in this. And so she really goes over this, the shame and the leaving feels impossible. And I'm sure, if you're aware of the literature, that it takes 7+ times for someone in an abusive relationship to attempt to leave to actually get out. And so they might seek a therapist 7 different times. They might reach out and make a safety plan with a family member or friend. They might actually leave, go to a hotel and engage a lawyer or law enforcement or whatever that looks like, 7 or more times before it actually sticks. And this is because of those psychological barbs that are so deep, sunk so deep into you, that it's your fault, that you are the problem, that you're weak, you'll never make it, that, you just make people feel this way and treat you this way and whatever, 1,000 different things. All right, so some of the things that she points out, that Beverly Engel points out in the emotionally abusive relationship, is the savior complex and the good guy ghost. This is absolutely huge. Many clients stay because they're hooked on the version of a partner that they saw at the beginning. The author helps you see that the good person that you saw at the beginning isn't being hidden by the abuser. Rather, the abuser is actually the reality. Like, this is what we're actually dealing with. And the good version is often a tool that kept you hooked to begin with. I think that's so important to be aware of, because if we're always thinking, well, the real them is it's just kind of, it's there. If I'm just patient enough, if I try harder, if I whatever, then that version of them that I fell in love with will come back. But the research is also clear on this, that when we start relationships, romantic relationships, we put forth our very best foot. And if you're dealing with someone who has strong abusive tendencies, they're going to, fake you out. They're going to show you what they think you want to see so that you get hooked. That was never the real them. And to give the devil his due, as you might say, sure, everyone has greatness and goodness in them, theoretically. Really, I believe in God, so I believe that we all have value, but we make choices about our character, about who we want to become, and it's up to that person if they want to bury that goodness so deep and disavow it and become a monster. That is up to them. And it's not for you to save them, to be so patient and so sweet and, to believe in them until it's all better again. You really can believe what you see is what you're getting, and you don't need to think beyond that. All right, the second piece, she talks about the erosion of the self. Chronic emotional abuse works like a slow poison. It erodes your confidence until you believe you are lucky to have the abuser and that no one else would want you. The author provides a roadmap for rebuilding that self-worth from the ground up. And again, I cannot emphasize enough how true that is, that you feel like a nobody, you feel so weak, you feel so all the things. And that is false. It's results of the abuse that are signs that you need some treatment and some support, but it is not true that you really are so broken and so bad. All right, a third point she makes is building the inner protector. Instead of remaining in a state of compliance, trying to appease the abuser to stay safe, the author offers exercises to develop an inner protector. This is the part of you that recognizes when a boundary has been crossed and gives you the internal permission to protect yourself, even if it upsets the other person. So it's really about prioritizing that inner part of yourself that says, I'm worth fighting for, I'm worth speaking for, I'm worth taking movements to protect myself, instead of the first thought always being, oh no, what do they think? What are they going to do? Am I in trouble? How do they see me? It's to really flip that on its head and put first things first, so to speak. So as you read these descriptions, do you have any takeaways that feel like it was written specifically for you, for your current situation? If there were any of these three books where you feel like, oh, that's the one that really jumps out at me, then I would encourage you to start your reading journey there. And just as a little note, if you have a severe abuse situation, then you want to reach out to safety hotlines if you feel afraid or concerned. I will have that number in this handout. You can easily Google them. And as a disclaimer, of course, this is just for informational purposes. I am not treating you. We are not in a contractual relationship where I'm responsible for helping you get out. This is just for educational purposes. But I do want to, again, point you to these books that if you want to understand more about what is really going on, and if indeed you are in an abusive relationship and how to get out, then all three of these would be extremely helpful. And as a reminder, see the link in the description to download my handout so that you can refer to these notes, look up the books, read the bullet points again, and be sure to catch this next video in the series where we are talking about how to move on and heal from an abusive relationship, an emotionally abusive relationship. Take care, and I'll see you next time.